Today is March 23rd, 2001. But let's go back in time a little bit. Well, more than a little bit. Let's go back in time 185 years. About a month from now, a huge battle is going to take place at this location. A battle for the independence of Texas. That's right, folks. We're at the San Jacinto Battleground. We're going to follow the markers. We're going to follow the battle. We'll see exactly how things went down 185 years ago, right here on this very spot. Marker stone number 1. This was the location where they had mounted the twin sister cannons. These are replicas, as the actual twin sisters have been lost to history. They were presumably buried somewhere so they could be dug up for later use when needed. That is what is expected to have happened with them. What's actually happened with them, nobody knows for sure. So if you ever digging in your backyard and you find yourself a cannon, or especially two, you got quite a prize, because the twin sisters are highly sought after by the state of Texas. The bore appears to be, I don't have anything to measure with, so I'm guessing, it appears to be about a 4-inch bore. The length, should have brought something to measure with, but the length appears to be about 5, maybe 5.5 feet long. And like I said, these are replicas. And the originals, I'm sure, probably would have been mounted to wheels, just like what you see most Civil War cannons mounted, so they'd be easily transportable. Let's move on to site number 2. Here at this site, the twin sisters would have been firing in this direction, towards the direction of the monument, as the Mexican army was a little bit behind the monument there. Maybe a couple hundred yards past the monument is where the Mexican army is encamped at this time, 185 years ago. Do those cannons have that kind of range? I don't know. But those people that did know, put them here, fired them there. So I can only say that they do. Let's find stone number 2. Here we have stone number 2, Burleson's camp. This was a camp for probably a fairly small amount of men, maybe 100. I'm only guessing at that because there are other camps located really closely by, which we'll get to in a minute. But this camp was probably the camp that was in charge of the twin sisters, because they are located maybe 30 yards away right there. They back up to what was then a bayou. It has since been dug out for the Houston Ship Channel. At the time, it would have been much smaller, although still big enough to make it very difficult to cross with heavy equipment. So the Texas Army at this point is backed up to the water. Let's find stone number 3. Stone number 3, Millard's camp. Millard's camp here is just maybe 100 yards away from the twin sisters and Burleson's camp. So we're starting to see that there is quite a gathering of Texas soldiers here in this area. Let's move on to number 4. Campsite number 4, Lamar's camp. Still, we're not far away from the other camps. maybe 50 yards to Millard's camp, 150 yards to Burleson's camp, 150 yards to the Twin Sisters. So we've got a lot of men here in a very small area. Let's move on to number 5. Marker stone number 5 is on the other side of the area than what Lamar's camp was. I believe it's going to put it about 200 yards from Lamar's camp and on the opposite side of the Twin Sisters. Number 5, Sherman's camp. Sherman's camp, about 100 yards from the Twin Sisters, 100 yards from the first camp, and about 200 yards away from Lamar's camp. So here in this area we have a fairly sizable amount of men gathered with their backs to Buffalo Bayou, which is right on the other side of that berm there. Let's go see what's going on at number 6. I think we're getting close to the battle. Marker stone number 6, Sherman's advance, left wing infantry, April 21st, 1836. So in this exact area, well, I shouldn't say exact area, the Daughters of the Republic of Texas brought soldiers out here many, many years after the battle, and they were the ones that placed these stones. They were placing them by memory from old men that had served in the battle, but many years before. So they may not be exact, but they should be close. But here, close to this location, I'll say, Sherman's men were advancing. Santa Anna's men were off still another half mile in that direction. The Texan army by the Buffalo Bayou is about a half to 3/4 of a mile in that direction. They're all advancing through this area 185 years ago. Sherman's men just happened to be right here. Point of note, this is not the Sherman that the Sherman tank was named after. Let's go find number 7. I have not been able to locate marker stone number 7. According to the map, it's on this side of the reflection pond, though I don't see anything out there, and it very rapidly turns to, looks like marshy land. I see a couple pipes out there that look like they're surrounding something. Small pipes. But I do not see a marker stone in the middle of them. So I'm not going to be able to locate marker stone number 7. Like I say, according to the map, it's somewhere out there. Don't know what it says. But since marker stone number 6 had an advance going, I'm going to assume that marker stone number 7 is the same. Marker stone number 6 is about a half mile straight ahead of us. So maybe it was another infantry following up behind Sherman. Don't know. Wish I could find it, but it is overgrown somewhere. They should have kept this cut down so people could walk to it. All right, well, we'll move on to number 8. I know where that is. Marker stone number 8, advance under General Rusk, April 21, 1836. Mexican Army, still about a mile and a quarter in that direction. Behind us, we have most of the Texas Army, the Twin Sisters. However, movement has started, and the entire army is now marching in the direction of the Mexican Army. Let's go find marker number 9, find out how things are going. Marker stone number 9, Millard's Advance Infantry, April 21, 1836. That's the battle date. Now, as you recall, Millard's camp yesterday, 185 years ago, was back there with its back to the bayou. But it's advanced up to this location, headed towards the Mexican Army. Let's follow them, see what happened. Marker number 10 currently finds itself in the reflection pond. Of course, the reflection pond obviously was not here at the time. This would have been all solid ground. How overgrown, nobody knows. Trees, grass, shrubbery, whatever may have been here. What happened here, though? Hockley's Advanced Artillery, April 21, 1836. So we had artillery here. Twin Sisters back that direction, about a half mile. Or maybe they were moved to this location. But the advance is happening. April 21 is the day of the battle. So the advance is happening. The Texans, who are in this direction generally, are advancing toward the Mexican Army, who are still about a quarter mile behind the monument. Let's follow the advance, find out what's happening, where the first skirmish happened, where the first shots were fired. Let's go see. Marker stone number 11, Mexican position, April 20th, 1836. Now, as you'll see in a minute here, marker stone number 12, that direction, about a quarter mile, there was a skirmish on the date that this marker stone has on it, April 20th, 1836. So Mexicans from this position most likely ran into the Texas Army down there, and they had a skirmish. Not really sure how the skirmish went, but that would have been on the 20th, and on the 21st, Sherman's men were about 300 yards back. So they ran into the Mexican Army down there, had a skirmish, went back to their main camp, and I would assume the Mexican Army came back here to this position. Let's follow on in as the Texas Army advances on the Mexican Army. Look what we have here at marker number 12. Cavalry skirmish under Sherman, day before battle. That would have been on the 20th. Now let's look this over a little bit, because this is in advanced position compared to the other two locations where we saw Sherman. Sherman was advancing on the 21st back in this direction, but he had a skirmish the day before that, about 300 yards forward of where his position would be tomorrow. So there was a skirmish in this area with Mexican soldiers, and after the skirmish, probably the Mexican soldiers went back toward their main camps, which are in that direction, and Sherman went back toward his main camps in this direction. So we should be getting into the Mexican army positions soon. Let's drive down the road and see what we can find. Number 13, Mexican Breastworks Cavalry Engagement under Lamar, April 21, 1836. Now, if you don't know what a breastworks is a fortification of sorts, usually built out of the soil, or it could have been logs, could have been anything. A breastworks is simply a fortification that's built up to about breast high on the typical man, something for him to hide behind while firing on whoever is coming at him. The Texans would have been coming from this direction. Right now, where we are, the Buffalo Bayou is about 1 mile to 1.25 miles in that direction. So the Texas Army is advancing that direction. And it says there was a cavalry engagement here. There is nothing left that you could think of as a breastworks. Of course, it has been 185 years. But I would think if it was a earth wall, there would still be something of it left, unless it's been removed by man, which is very possible. So let's find number 14, find out what's going on. This is a very good example of the natural habitat here. I would think very much like what it was during the battle, only obviously some would have been pushed down, knocked down, maybe burned down for campsites. But you can see how highly overgrown it is, just like anything natural, I guess. That small shrubbery is about 6 feet high. There are dewberry vines everywhere, and for those of you that don't know what a dewberry is, first off, they're very tasty. Second off, they'll get you when you walk by them. Nice looking dead tree back there. You can see there's not a whole lot of things to hide behind here. But this is 100% completely different than it would have been 185 years ago. None of these trees were there then. The trees that were there at the time are long gone. Marker number 14, Mexican Cannon. This is very close to Santa Anna's camp and the breastworks. Santa Anna's camp is right behind us, maybe 50 yards. Breastworks are in that direction, maybe 75 yards. Now, they did have at one time a cannon displayed here, but it was only for display. First off, it was a reproduction cannon, of course, and they built this mount to put the cannon in. Now, this is nothing like what would have been here at the time, as the cannons that the Mexicans were using were mounted on wheels to be able to be rapidly moved around. And yes, it rained today. Let's find marker 15. Marker number 15, Mexican Breastworks. Santa Ana's camp is to the left about 75 yards. Marker number 13 is about 150 to 200 yards straight ahead. If you'll recall, that was also a Mexican Breastworks. So I'm going to assume that that big wall of earth or wood or whatever they made it out of was stretched that entire 150 to 200 yards to this location, and that would have placed the entire wall in front of Santa Ana's camp. Sounds logical to me. So we are currently right in the midst of the Texan assault on Santa Ana camp. Texans are coming from that direction in an all-out assault. They're taking on the breastworks wall here, and as you all know, Santa Ana rapidly retreated to try to escape. That means I'm going to assume that this breastworks wall did not hold very long at all. Let's move on to marker number 16. Stone marker number 16, Santa Ana's camp. So this is the area that Santa Ana would have been camped in. The breastworks are about 75 yards in that direction. Texas Army is advancing from this direction. Number 17, Alamo captured, and this is where the greatest carnage of the battle occurred. The Santa Ana's camp is about a quarter mile in that direction. The Texans camp by Buffalo Bayou is about mile and a half in that direction. And probably why the greatest carnage of the battle happened here is because the Mexican army backed up to water. There was nowhere else to go. Now this area has subsided over the 185 years. Don't know how much, but that water to some extent has always been there. You can see the ship going by, and you can see water close by there. That area these days is very swampy, and I'm willing to bet that it was back then. So the Mexican army was backed up with nowhere to go. They had at this choice no option but to fight or surrender. They ended up doing both. Let's take a look from the air and see how big this battlefield is. If you've never been here, then I can tell you this battlefield is several square miles. If you have been here, then you know how big it is. And while the battlefield is fairly large, keep in mind that the Mexican army had 12 to 1300 men. The Texas army had about 900 men. So that puts anywhere between 2,000 and 2,200 men here in a 2 or 3 square mile area. That's a lot of folks. The area quickly becomes small with that many people trying to kill each other. All right, let's find out exactly how far away he was. How far did he make it? Santa Ana capture site. let Google Earth do the work for us. Yep, it's in Pasadena. All right, at the capture site, you can see it's right by the bayou still. There is a little park developed there now, and a memorial stone. I'll show you a photo of that here in a minute. But let's figure out just how far away he was. He made it a good distance. He's right here by this little black dot lake or whatever it is. Let's see how far it is to the monument. We're going to go to the marker that said it was the point of most carnage right there. And what do we get? 13,673 meters. Alexa, how many miles is 13,673 meters?
13,673 meters is 8.496 miles.
So he made it almost 8.5 miles before he was captured. That's a pretty good run, I think. Small park right by the Washburn Tunnel. This is the area that Santa Anna was captured in. By road, it's about 13 miles from the battlefield in a straight line. So he made it pretty far before he was captured. There is some repairs and construction going on to the marker stone. Marker number 19, Houston wounded and horse killed under him during the battle. Now this is a very precarious location where he was wounded here, because absolutely straight in front of us is where they have marked a Mexican cannon location. Behind that is the breastwork wall that stretches for about 200 yards, I'm going to guess, 150 yards minimum. And behind that wall is Santa Anna's camp. So this location from Santa Anna's camp is less than 200 yards, probably 150 yards. So Sam Houston, he's right in the heat of the battle. He's right in the center of the breastworks wall. It stretches in this direction. He was here, and it also stretches in that direction. And he was, if these markers are correct, right in line with the cannon. So he was in a very, very, very dangerous situation. So Houston was obviously a man, and history already tells us that he was, but Houston was a man that not only led battles, but he participated in them. He is right here in the heat of everything. This battle was so one-sided that it's just amazing. There were 650 Mexican soldiers killed, and just nine Texas soldiers killed. The kill ratio was probably one of the greatest in history. Only one we got left is 20. Let's go see what's happening at 20. Here we have marker number 20. Now that is the only one out of all 20 markers that is not numbered, but it is marker number 20. It has a engraving on it that depicts Santa Anna being brought before General Sam Houston at the end of the battle. General Sam Houston was brought back to this location after he was wounded about half a mile in that direction. This is the original location of all the Texas camps. Apparently a hospital was set up here to take care of the wounded. And this is where General Sam Houston wound up. Now, as I'm sure most of you know, Santa Anna had taken off his uniform and put on the uniform of a private so as to disguise himself, obviously, from being the president of Mexico. After he was captured and started getting around the other Mexican soldiers, they started calling him El Presidente, and then it was at that time that his true identity was discovered. Now, his uniform was found, and his uniform, last time I was in the San Jacinto Monument about 3 years ago, his uniform was on display inside the monument. Now, it has been offered up to Mexico in exchange for the Texas flag that flew over the Alamo by the Daughters of the Republic of Texas multiple times, but the country of Mexico has never been willing to make the exchange. So it still stands on display in the San Jacinto Monument, waiting for the day that Mexico may be willing to do an exchange. Sam Houston died July 26, 1863 in Huntsville, Texas. Cause of death was pneumonia. His wife was by his side. Santa Anna, the dictator of Mexico, seized power 11 times until the Mexican people finally deposed him to Cuba. Oddly enough, while he was in exile, he spent time living in the United States. He died in Mexico City, June 21st, 1876. If you ever want to come out here, there's some nice picnic areas under some really, really nice moss-covered trees. It'd be a great place to bring your kids, picnic. I don't like to drive in too much. It's kind of a poor drive in, I would say, depending on which direction you're coming from. But the park itself, even though it's starting to look aged, still a very nice park. Thanks for coming along for this look into Texas's history. Please give me a like, a thumbs up, and please subscribe. It's been a Jeep, a drone, and an old man. We'll be seeing you next time.